Hey there, welcome to my kitchen. If you're new, my name is Mel and I absolutely love to cook and I love cooking for other people. I'm hoping you like to make casseroles because today I have 4 casserole recipes to share with you. If you clicked on this video, then hopefully you do. But let's go ahead and get started and I'll show you what I made. First up today, we're going to be making a pizza casserole. I'm going to go ahead and preheat my oven to 400 degrees and then over to my cutting board, I have an onion that I'm going to slice. I will also cut it down the center just so that these pieces aren't too big. And then I'm also going to chop up 1 green bell pepper. And I'm going to slice about 8 ounces of mushrooms. I do remove the stems, but that's a preference thing. I don't like the texture of them. You can leave them in if you want to, but I go ahead and just remove the stems. For the meat, we're going to be using some mild Italian sausage. My store didn't have any, just regular. So I'm just using these. It's okay. You can just remove the casings and it's the same exact thing. After I get my sausage broke up in my pan a little bit, I'm going to add in my bell pepper, my mushroom, and my onion. I'm going to let all of these cook together. That way they pick up the flavor from the sausage as well. Once everything is tender and my sausage is cooked all the way through, I'm going to go ahead and just remove any extra grease or liquid from the pan. Now I'm adding 1 tablespoon of minced garlic. I'm going to stir this around and let it cook for another minute to 2 minutes until I can really smell that garlic really strong. After that, I'm adding 1 jar of spaghetti sauce. You can use any sauce that you want to. I'm just using a pretty inexpensive jar of spaghetti sauce from KNORR. This step is optional, but you can add about 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. I love it. I think it adds to the meal. Once everything is well combined, I'm going to dump it over into a 9x13 casserole dish. There is no need to spray your dish. This will not stick because of the sauce. You should be good to go there. Once that's evenly spread throughout my dish, I'm going to go ahead and add a layer of pepperoni. I did choose to use turkey pepperoni. I prefer to use turkey pepperoni, but I also like it in things like this because they are not as greasy, so you're not going to have that layer of grease. Next, over top of your pepperonis, you're just going to add some shredded cheese. Today, I'm just using about 1 cup to 1.5 cups of shredded mozzarella cheese. If you're able, freshly shredded mozzarella is much better. But as you can see, I did not use freshly shredded this time, but let me tell you, it definitely makes a difference in my opinion. Next, you're going to need 1 can of pizza dough, or you can make your own, and you're just going to add that right over the top of the cheese and try to make sure that you cover it as much as possible. In this little bowl, I have 2 tablespoons of salted butter with 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder and 1/2 teaspoon of oregano. I did melt the butter, and now we're just going to spread this across the top of this pizza dough. Before this goes in the oven, just like you would with a stromboli, you're going to add a couple slices to the top of this so it has somewhere to vent. I baked this in my oven for about 12 minutes until the crust had this really pretty golden color to it. The only reason you put this in the oven is for that crust. So as long as your crust is done, you're good to go. Over the top, I just sprinkled it with some grated Parmesan cheese for a little extra flavor and pizzazz. And then we're also going to add just a little bit of parsley on the top for some more color, and then it's ready to go. Here's what it looked like on my plate. This was so delicious. I enjoy making this because I like the crust on the top more. I like how it gets a lot more crispy. When you make this kind of meal with the crust on the bottom or using biscuits on the bottom, they don't seem to get as crispy, obviously, because they're covered with other ingredients. So I really like this one. Next up, we're gonna make what I'm calling a brats casserole. This was a clean out the fridge kind of dinner night, but it turned out so good. We both really enjoyed it. In my air fryer, I'm gonna go ahead and cook up these brats. They were just mild Italian, and I cooked them on 360 degrees for about 10 minutes until they hit temperature. Next, I'm gonna slice up some potatoes. As you can see, I had one russet potato that was pretty large, and then I had some smaller red potatoes as well. I went ahead and washed those. I left the skin on, and I chopped all those up into nice small pieces. Over to my cast iron skillet, I added a couple tablespoons of butter and olive oil, and I'm going to start frying these potatoes in here. The seasoning that I chose to use is this Tony's Creole seasoning. It's like a Cajun seasoning, I believe. It is really good, and it's definitely good on potatoes because it's salty. I'm also adding a couple shakes of pepper, a couple shakes of garlic powder and onion powder. Again, I'm just going to fry these potatoes up right in here. I will try to list out the ingredients as close as I possibly can down below for you in case you're interested in this recipe. But like I said, I was just cleaning out the fridge this night, and this is the dinner that we ended up with. While my potatoes are cooking, I'm going to go ahead and slice up about 8 ounces of mushrooms. My mushrooms were looking a little rough, so I wanted to get those used up. And then I'm also using one small yellow onion. I sliced it and then cut it in half so it would be in a little bit smaller pieces. And then I also had one red bell pepper that was looking sad as well, so I went ahead and chopped that one up. Once my brats were done, I went ahead and just sliced those up into smaller bite-sized pieces. And then back to my potatoes. When they were all done frying, I went ahead and removed them from my skillet and replace them with the bell pepper, onion, and mushrooms. And I did season those again with some more of that Cajun seasoning and a little bit of garlic powder and black pepper. I let those cook in there for about 10 minutes until they were nice and tender, and then I added in my sliced brats. And I also found a little bit of shrimp that was left in the freezer. It wasn't even half of a package, so I figured, you know what, I'm just going to add it in. Shrimp is always good with Cajun seasoning. I added a little bit more Cajun seasoning since I added in more ingredients. I gave this another good stir and let everything continue to warm through. Now I'm adding back in my potatoes, and I'm going to give this another good mix together to combine everything. And then over the top of this, I'm actually going to add some cheese. I just decided to use some mozzarella because I had extra mozzarella in the fridge, but I think cheddar would be really good on here as well. I added about a cup to a cup and a half of that over the top, added another pan on the top since I don't have a lid for this, let the cheese melt down, and then it was ready to eat. This is what my plate looked like when it was all done. Like I said, this was one of those dinners where I was cleaning out the fridge and freezer, and it turned out so good. My husband raved about this, and he ate 3 plates that night, so I know it was good if he ate that much. But I really enjoyed it as well. It had a lot of simple ingredients in it, which I really like, and then I just served it with some watermelon. Next up, I have been addicted to pierogies lately, so we're gonna make a pierogi casserole. I preheated my oven to 350 degrees, and then while I was waiting on that, I got some bacon cooking. I only cooked about 4 slices of bacon since I wasn't making a huge casserole. Next, I'm just going to dice up half of a yellow onion. And then over to the skillet that I cooked the bacon in, I did remove most of the grease but left about a tablespoon or so. I'm going to add my onion in there and cook that until it's nice and tender. This took about 7 or 8 minutes. Once it's all done, I'm going to go ahead and add a big tablespoon of minced garlic. I let this cook for about another minute until it was really fragrant. Now I'm adding in 1 small can of cream of mushroom soup, a half cup of sour cream, about 1/3 cup of heavy whipping cream, and then I added my bacon in there that I chopped up, along with about 1 cup of shredded mild cheddar cheese. Now that everything's all in my pan, I'm just going to mix this together. I have this on a low heat and we're going to let everything melt down and combine. I'm going to lightly season this with a little bit of black pepper, garlic powder, and salt. I would definitely do this to taste. I probably only added about 1/8 to 1/4 teaspoon of each one. Once that has warmed through and all the cheese has melted, go ahead and go over to a small baking dish. Mine is about 8 by 8, I believe. I'm going to add a couple spoonfuls of my cheese sauce to the very bottom of this. Spread it around as evenly as you can, and then you're also going to need 1 package of Mrs. T's pierogies. I am using the 4 cheese medley, but there are different ones that you can use besides this. According to the package, there are 12 pierogies per box, but usually when you pull them all out, there are 13. So on this bottom row, I'm going to go ahead and layer on 6 of these pierogies. Next, just like a lasagna, I'm going to add another layer of this cheese sauce. I just tried to spread that around the best I could. And then on top of that layer of cheese sauce in another direction, I'm going to add the rest of my pierogies, and as you can see, there is 7. Like I said, it always seems like there's an extra one. I don't know if they do that on purpose or not, but you just need to make it fit the best you can. Now just go ahead and take the rest of that cheese sauce and it's going to cover that top layer of pierogies. I topped this with about 1/2 cup to 3/4 cup of shredded mild cheddar cheese, and then this went in the oven to bake for about 35 minutes. After 35 minutes, this is what it'll look like. It should be bubbling around the edges. I did just top this with some chives. I served this with some Italian style green beans. Those are my favorites. And this casserole was so delicious. Like I said, I've been addicted to pierogies lately. This is the 2nd week in a row I've made them. They're just so good. Last but not least, we are finishing off this video with a Southwestern casserole. I went ahead and preheated my oven to 350 degrees, and then I chopped up half of a yellow onion. I'm also going to be taking 2 chicken breasts and cutting those into small bite-sized pieces. I love this recipe because it is a true dump and bake casserole. Into the very bottom of my 9x13, I'm adding 1 cup of long grain white rice with 1 tablespoon of minced garlic and my onion. Next, I'm adding 1 cup of chicken broth to that. I do like to use the low sodium chicken broth. I'm going to mix this together and try to evenly distribute it across the bottom of my pan. Now, without disturbing the rice mixture too much, you're going to try to evenly add your bite-sized pieces of chicken over the top in a good layer. Next, you'll add 1 can of drained and rinsed black beans, 1 can of corn. I actually cut my corn down and only added about a cup just because we don't like a ton of corn. For my seasonings, I'm adding a 1/2 teaspoon of cumin, a 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of chili powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of paprika, a couple shakes of pepper, and a couple shakes of cayenne pepper, and about a 1/4 teaspoon to a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Over top of everything, you're going to add 1 16-ounce jar of salsa. You can use any salsa you want, spicy, medium, mild, whatever you like, and spread that evenly over the top. You may be concerned that this is not all mixed together and the seasonings are not distributed through everything, but honestly, trust me, I've made this a few times. It's really easy to do. As you can see, the flavors all come together really well, and it doesn't even matter that the seasonings aren't mixed in, because you don't notice in the end. Now I'm just covering this with some foil and adding it into the oven. This baked for a total of 1 hour. You really just need to make sure that your rice is fully cooked in the bottom, so you'll have to just kind of take a fork and give it a little test. My chicken was done very quickly, obviously because it's super small pieces, but the rice is what you need to worry about. It will take longer than anything else. After that hour in the oven, I'm going to go ahead and add about 1 to 2 cups of shredded Mexican style cheese over the top, and then I just put this back in the oven for about 3 minutes, just enough to melt the cheese. Here's what my finished plate looked like when it was all done. You can add any of your favorite toppings. I just added some Diablo hot sauce with some guacamole and sour cream and a little bit of cilantro over the top. This was absolutely delicious and so easy to make. If you made it to the end of this video, leave me a flower down in the comments. I love to see who sticks around for the whole thing. Thank you so very much for watching, and I can't wait to see you back here on Wednesday for a new video. Bye guys!